Hello, and welcome to this CresFest world. That great funky playing is from the Haas Sisters of the USA, international guests at CresFest in 2023. My name is Neil Adam, and somehow I got mixed up in the gang that was setting up CresFest, a music festival which takes place every year in April in Creswick, a small Victorian town 15 minutes from Ballarat, maybe 90 minutes out of Melbourne. Organising a music festival in a small country town puts you in touch with all kinds of interesting people. Some are local, some not. Some are musicians, some are not. Some of the chat is about music, and guess what? Some is not. Hello and welcome back to this CresFest world. This is episode 27. One of the really great things about CresFest is the CresFest Conversations program. In amongst all those great concerts, you'll come across face-to-face chats between our two great interviewers, notable Australian author Kate Kennedy and James Freemantle, TV presenter, filmmaker, leadership coach, and various performers at the festival. In 2025, for the first time, we were able to record some of these interviews live, and we're going to now release some of them as part of this podcast series. If you're interested in the back catalogue of these interviews from previous years, perhaps listen back to episode 22, where Kate and James talk about what they do in these interviews, how they do it, and also about some of the most notable memories from past years. But today, to start off this short series of CresFest conversation interviews recorded live at the festival, we start with James Freemantle talking with Neil Murray. You probably don't need me to tell you that Neil wrote one of Australia's best-known songs of the last 30 years, My Island Home. Long recognised as one of Australia's foremost songwriters, Neil's career started with the indigenous band Warumpi Band in 1980, and he now has more than 10 solo albums to his name. Constantly in demand as a touring performer, we were lucky to get him at CresFest. I'll shut up now and I'll let you listen to James talking with Neil Murray. Over to you, James.
Thanks, Ben, and welcome everybody to CresFest. It's wonderful to be here. My name's James Freemantle. I'm your conversation host for this morning, and I'm really delighted to be speaking with Neil. I realised we've got lots of crossovers when we started talking yesterday, Neil, and we both grew up in Western Victoria, different land. I was in the Gunditjmara country, and we both felt in the 1970s an urge to get away. For you it was to go up north, and there was a strong pull for you to go up north, and for me it was going overseas, and I was a few years behind you, and I had cassette tapes of Warumpi Band. And I remember driving across with two mad mates across America in a crappy old Datsun, and we were playing Warumpi on the cassettes, and it made a lot of sense over there. I wonder if we could start just with talking about that, being drawn to leave where you grew up to find another place or a connection.
Yeah, well, I was brought up on a farm in between Lake Bollock and Wicklow. That's in Japarong country. It was my great-grandfather's soldier settlement block, 640 acres. But I can recall going around the farm with my grandfather and my father and picking up stones in the paddock, and my grandfather had a collection of blackfellow stones, we called them. They were axe heads, grind sets and stuff, and I remember holding them and handling them. And then he explained that they belonged to people that used to live there before. And my young mind was suddenly fixed on that and puzzled, because I said, where are they? He said, oh, they're all gone. They're gone. Where are they gone? You know? I think he said something, some might have gone to Framingham, I didn't know where that was. But once the kind of penny dropped that there were these people that had lived in the land before us, before settlers, I just, it stayed with me, and I felt it was something very important. And as I grew older and learned more, I developed this desire to really want to find these people and to be with them. I felt some intuitive compulsion. I just had to find people and be with them. That's all I kind of knew. And for some reason, well, for a specific reason, in the last year at high school, we had a dance group from the morning to Nolan come do a demonstration at the high school, and they were from up north, and so I got this idea that they were all up north. But I also particularly wanted to go to a place where people still had their language, law and culture and land intact, so that led me to the Northern Territory. First trip was in 78, and then I made a couple of other subsequent trips, and then finally in January 1980 I took up a job at Papunya, driving an outstation store truck around the outstation communities, camps, because it was too hard for a local Aboriginal fellow to do it because of the obligation on him to give the food away free to his family. Too much, and it was hard enough for me to do it, try and balance the books and cash the dole checks and pension checks. But that's initially why I was hired, and I did that for a year, and then after that I became a teacher. I did have a teaching qualification, so I taught on the outstations. So that's initially how I got up here.
And then someone noticed you were carrying a guitar, didn't they?
Well, the word got around pretty quickly in the community that here's this young white fellow, he's got a guitar. So I hadn't been there for a week, and I was in a sort of a little one-room flat of a block of floor, the rest were trashed. I had a knock on the door one day, and I opened the door, and here's this young Aboriginal bloke, a pretty good-looking young fella, and he said, "You got a guitar?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Show me." I showed him my guitar, and boy, could he play it. Whoa. And so we soon quickly started jamming. His name was Sammy Butcher, and he was very talented. He was a very good footy player too. He could play guitar like a ring and a bell, as Chuck Berry says. So that was a delight because he had a wonderful energy to play with, and we just enjoyed playing together. And his younger brother come down the first day we jammed and just had an upturned flower drum and a couple of twigs, just keep the beat. But we scrounged around and sit-down money, that's what the dole was called. Young fellas chucked in their sit-down money, and we got a bit of gear together, started playing covers at first. We did that for a while. We played a couple of gigs even, and the sort of floating lineup, some different guys that swapped around instruments, and there was a kind of loose country and western kind of lineup, and then there was a bit of gospel, and then there was sort of rock and roll lineup that I was in, and I was the only one sort of singing. Everyone else was sitting on their amps, turned away from the audience. They call it kundanga, which just sort of loosely means shame, you know. And I'm trying to say, come on, I'm going to turn around and face the front. But about 6 months later, we had a fellow turn up in the community who was from the top end. I distinctly remember it. I was out on the front on my veranda of my little flat, and I had a didgeridoo, or bumbo, it was called from West Armland, that I learned a bit from an old fella in 78, 79, up at Banmili. David Blanasi was his name. And he showed me a few things, and I got onto a few of the things he'd showed me, some calls and stuff. So I was out there playing this riff that old David had taught me, because they don't use didgeridoo in Papunya. And I see out the corner of my eye this tall, dark, skinny fellow dressed in denim jacket, and he's walking down the road towards me. And I think, he doesn't look like he's local, the darker than the desert bloke. So I'm blown away, and as I'm blown, he starts walking quicker. He's come straight into the yard and up on the veranda, and he starts clapping his hands and singing in language. And I just about shit myself. I thought, what have I done? Have I transgressed something here? And he says, don't stop, that's bullying. I said, I don't really know, I don't know much. He said, yeah, I'll show you. And he grabs it and blows the thing I was trying to play, and it just sounds so deadly, it's just upright, solid, And I'm like, wow, that's great, And he looks inside my door of my flat, and my guitar's laying on my swag. He said, you got a guitar? I said, yeah. And he said, I'm a singer man. Oh yeah, I said. He said, what time you having been? I said, we'll be there this afternoon in the hall. And he said, I'll see you there. So he's pretty bold, you know, pretty cocky.
This was George?
Yeah, that's just George. Yeah. I didn't know at that stage that he'd arrived and married Sammy's sister. So there's no way he wasn't going to be in the band, you know. So we turned up at practice that afternoon. He walked in with a heap of tattered songbooks and stuff, you know. And he just wanted to, at least he faced the front, and he wanted to stand up and just sing. So that completed, we had our front man then. And at that point, I thought, gee, we could do something here, you know. Yeah.
You talked to me, you told me yesterday a little bit about the songwriting process, the pattern that seemed to happen, that Sammy would drop an idea and then he'd leave it with you.
Well, yeah, the different ways the songs happen, but later on, as I was talking about in the 2014, 13, 14, when I went out to see Sammy again, it was as long after George had passed, and the Warumpi Band played its last gig in 2006, and the lead singer passed in 2007, and that was it. But anyway, I went out to see Sammy, and he's just got a great, I've just learned so much from him, the way he talks and tells stories, or he might pick up a guitar and play a little bit and have a couple of lines, and it just gives me an idea into a song. Sometimes you just need a starting point. And then he'd leave for the rest of the day. He'd be off having meetings, whatever, and come back in the afternoon. I'd make something out of a little spark he'd left me with, you know. I'd have a little fire going, you know. And I'd play it, and he goes, yeah, bugger. You know, bugger means good, you know. So often he'd spark ideas. Yeah, you do a riff he'd play or a story he told me or something. So we did an album called Jungle, which was released in 2019. Jungle in his language means all in one joined together, which sums up his inclusive, generous spirit. Him inviting me to play with his brothers initially, otherwise Warumpi Band wouldn't have happened. Probably wouldn't have happened without George turning up. And probably wouldn't have happened without David Cook, our long-time manager who started working with us in 1984, who's also passed away now. So, yeah, it's quite remarkable.
Well, it must have been an extraordinary time. You produced some fantastic songs. Songs that people, I think of as part of the Australian experience, if you like. My Island Home, for instance, Blackfellow, Whitefellow. And the first song, really, I think, that came to prominence in language. What was that song called?
Jalan Rupakanam, means out from jail.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was written in about 15 minutes. We had encouragement from Philip Batty, who was with John McCumber, who just started Aboriginal radio broadcasting as a precursor to Carla. And he said, you blokes should be writing songs in language, so we've got something to play on the radio. Aboriginal half-hour broadcast they had. So, and I'd also been involved with bilingual thing with my teaching job, and I've got proficient at being able to write the language down, the orthography and that, and just got with Sammy one day, and he had the words, because we'd been driving around Alice Springs. Sometimes you see a young bloke on the corner, he's got clean clothes on, his slick back hair, and he's clean shaven. We go past and we asked him the question, that means what's up? And he yelled out, I just got out of jail today. Looking for a lift home now, before I get in more trouble. You know? So it was a common experience, all young blokes. I just regard it as a bit of high school, you know. You go to jail for unpaid fines, warrants, drunk driving or something, petty offences. There was no shame or stigma attached to it. But it also, in another way, the inference is, incarceration rates for First Nation people are still disproportionately high in this country. But anyway, it was an upbeat song talking about leaving jail, getting out of jail and going in a hurry back to your wife, girlfriend, whatever, and your family. Very simple. And I just had a bit of a riff, and Sammy had the words, and we just put it together in 15, 20 minutes. And that became our first single, and it was a quiet revolution at the time, because it was the first ever commercially released 7-inch single on vinyl, sung in an indigenous language of this continent.
Yeah. Well, how do you think the relationship to language has changed in this country? You've got artists like Gurumal, for instance, doing entire albums in two language. Is there a greater acceptance? Is there a greater acknowledgement of the power of language?
I think there's a greater awareness of how important it is and how it is the intellectual treasure of this continent, the beautiful languages that arose in this land. And there's, as you say, there's a lot of artists now that have that sing in their own languages. I'm a big supporter of the language retrieval and revival wherever it's possible to do so, and I think all kids in an area, doesn't matter whether they're indigenous or not, they should all know the names, the indigenous names for the flora and fauna, for example, in their area. They're beautiful names, and they have a resonance when they're uttered in the country where they arose. And I'm all very much always been pro language. Yeah.
It's a weird image. I do remember quite clearly driving across Nevada, singing that song, playing on the cassette tape, not knowing a thing about the language or what the song meant, but just pumping it out in the desert. It seemed to make sense. Connection.
It's anyone can relate to it. If you're talking about jail or Republican, getting out of jail, It was an upbeat song, and it announced us as something different, Although, in a way, at the time, we were seen as a bit of a novelty act too. In that first album, Big Name No Blankets, it was very raw sound. It was done and mixed in 4 days. Came out at a time when most of the mainstream music was very heavily produced, synthesised sounds, effective drums and all that. And we got this thing that sounds pretty raw. Ironically, that rawness, that organic rawness now is what is an aesthetic that people like now, But at the time, it didn't get any commercial airplay.
No. Can we move forward a few years now and talk about? I mean, you've produced 10 solo albums since Warumpi, and some beautiful stories of connection, but also some really challenging songs, I think. I wonder if you'd talk about some of your reconnection to your country where you grew up, and what the motivation for that is, and what that's led you to.
Well, being up there in the Northern Territory amongst people, Irish people who still got a strong connection to their country, still have their language, still have their law, it was very instructive, because it gave me an insight into what's been lost in my own region, probably this region as well. I can only speak for the area where I grew up, Japaron country, and born and raised around Lake Bollock, which was the estate of the Bullockburra clan from that area. And but even so, Sammy, for example, said, "That's your country," I said, "Is it?" She said, yeah, that's where you're from, this is your country. And I said, well, they've lost their language there, and people got, really brutally dispossessed in the 1800s, and, real bad times. And he said, yeah, but you can still, what I understood from Albert is that it's still your country, And the thing is, you've got to sit down in the land, and the land will teach you, So I took that idea on, and I came back. Mid-90s, I went back out and got a little place in Lake Bollock. And it hasn't been easy. And I also found and rediscovered Indigenous people from the area. From Framingham, I finally got to meet Uncle Banjo Clark in 1993. I'd heard his name mentioned to me in 1979 when I was teaching at Warumpi. A local Aboriginal fellow or Aboriginal bloke told me, you should go see Uncle Banjo, he'll sort you out. Because I said I didn't know any black fellows in my own area. Only in hindsight I realised that my high school was probably at least half a dozen kids that were of Indigenous descent. But of course no one said anything about it back then. Except one kid in Form 4, I remember him whispered sort of conspiratorially to me one day. He said, guess what? I said, what? He said, I got a black fella in there. I said, oh yeah, that's great. It's like a little secret, and
it probably took him a lot to share that.
Yeah. But meeting Uncle Banjo was instructive because I had a lot of anguish about wanting to know what had happened in the area. And he'd had a lot of people come to his door like that, and he sat me down, had a cup of tea and stuff, and he took me up to the mission cemetery and showed me all the unmarked graves where the old people who were buried, the last ones, you know. Yeah, and I was impressed by him because he just told stories that had little teaching parables in them and stuff, you know.
Mm.
But anyway, coming back to my home area, we did a lot of, we called them healing walks. We followed water courses since 2005. Nearly every year we did a walk, but it's dropped off in recent times. And associated with that, we've created a little festival at Lake Bowler called the Lake Bowler Gill Festival, because before colonization happened, up to 1,000 people, indigenous people, would go over there every year to harvest the eels when the lake was overflowing in the early autumn. So we thought, well, let's have a gathering here, you know. So that inspired that, and it happens biannually. Next one's next year. So those things have made it meaningful for me to return. Yeah.
Yeah, great. I wonder if you'd share with us the story of Broken Land, and maybe then you would give us a rendition.
All right, this is a track from my latest record, The Telling. Broken Land. Traditional elders regard any area of country where the songline has been lost, or the people have lost their ceremony, lost their law, lost their language. They regard that country as being broken. And I said to Samuel, I said, my country's broken. He said, I know. But even so, it doesn't mean it can't be healed. But large parts of Australia are that way. And this song came to me in a rush in 2021 after driving from Broome to Fremantle in the winter. Got down there and it just tumbled out. But it's a good overview, I think. It's not meant to be bitter. It's just meaning to be stating the facts, the truth, and how it is. So I'll give it a run.
Once there was a people held paradise in their hand. Then invaders came and killed them all, and now it's a broken land. The country it was plundered, and greed drove its course. Anything sacred and precious, destroyed without a thought. Gleaming towers of glass and steel rose along the coast. Profits from the mines inland were what they valued most. The elders are all gone, and our kids just run amok. Try to restore some discipline before we lose the luck. Courage, diligence, and fortitude, they say it'll get you through. No point being too angry, or your spirit might lead you. You can't fix it all when the damage has long been done. Do your best with what remains, pick up and carry on. Down in a broken land, down in a broken land, paying the price of the colonized any way we can. I was born in a broken land, born in a broken land. I don't mean to criticize, I just want you to understand. Now the nation looks for glory upon the sporting field, as if the winning count can make up for how we feel. I'm baffled by the loss of knowledge that once was, haunted by the absence of the people who belong. Is there any place left of nurture? Is there any woman who can hold me tight on these dark sad nights down in a broken land? Down in a broken land, down in a broken land, paying the price of the colonized any way we can. I was born in a broken land, born criticize, I just want you to understand. 3,000 miles away, I'm staying in somebody's shit. The wind moans outside my door and a cat keeps jumping on my bed. I thought I could escape, but I still hear in my mind. Even in the city, I can hear the mopo cry. I know my grave is waiting back there in the cold country. I pray that only good memories stay with me. Down in a broken land, down in a broken land, paying the price of the colonized any way we can. I was born in a broken land, born in a broken land. I don't mean to criticize, I just want you to understand. I was born in a broken land.
I don't mean to criticise, I just want you to understand.
Yeah.
What do you think about the power of music to move us forward? What's the role that it plays in a country that needs to heal?
Just like any artist, I think you just erect signposts and hope that the community will follow. That's what we can do, but certainly a song can help open people's minds up to consider it, because if you can touch them emotionally, people can, I'm not sure that, and it's politicians and actual people power that actually makes real change.
Yeah.
But I think all art can inspire and certainly sing the truth and help move, shift the weight of consciousness towards progress. Yeah.
I really love that line. I don't mean to criticise, I just want you to understand.
Yes.
Because I think that...
It's about accepting the truth.
It kind of shows that line between, the line between the anger and the line between the passive and the non-acceptance or the not looking into the truth telling. And I think it's a tough line to tread, because you go too far either way and nothing happens, you just get conflict. And I think perhaps that music is a way to get into people's hearts and really connect.
Yeah, I guess a song can kind of convey something better than perhaps beating people over the head with a diatribe of crimes, But it can sort of appeal to people's heart, their sense of compassion.
There's another song in the footsteps of Blackfellow Bob that had a pretty interesting story around it.
Yeah, well,
they all do, don't they?
Well, they sort of do, yeah. They come in all their mysterious ways. But yeah, Dunkeld, there's a museum in Dunkeld at the end of Garrywood there, and I always knew there was some traditional weapons in the museum. And I had a hankering to have a close look at them, and one Sunday I went in there was only the caretaker there, and I asked, any chance to look at those spears in the glass cabinet and boomerangs and wolves? And he said, yeah, no worries, and opened it up. So here I am holding these elegant reed spears and delicate slimline boomerangs and stuff. And the story was a couple of countrymen having a last walk through country in the 1890s up through the Victoria Valley, and one of them got a bit sick and and a local farmer helped them out. So in gratitude, they just handed their weapons over to the farmer before going back. I think they were heading back to Lake Con, the mission. So the weapons stayed in that family, and they just bequeathed it to the local museum. That's how they ended up there. So I was just intrigued by that, and always wanting to know more about local people, and just by holding the spears, I felt that I might get something. So I'm holding these things, for good 15, 20 minutes, and then really feeling them, and then I just went home and wrote this song. It's just, that's how it can happen sometimes.
Yeah.
So
Beautiful.
it's called In the Footsteps of Blackfella Bob.
In the footsteps of Blackfella Bob, let's follow one last walk with thee. Let's kiss goodbye to country, never again to see. We're fenced in on the missions, the squatters stole our homes. So before I lose a memory dear, let's take to the country and roam. I'll sing you a song of the water in the soft woman's valley I'll lie by the side of Garrywood Mountain where my soul longs to fly. I'll sing you the ways of the wetlands, the crane, the bittern and swan. I'll show you the cave that lies hidden in the footsteps of Blackfella Bob. History and paint you'll dream on, and stars tell a story by night. And settle down in the evening, cook supper by firelight. We'll find the cache of old weapons, the boomerang and spear. To the farmer that showed us kindness, we'll give them to him for free. When it's time to return to the mission, I'll let you go ahead. I'll stay behind in the valley, lay my weary head. You'll hear me in the wetlands, in the song of a chorus of frogs. You'll feel me whenever you're walking in the footsteps of Blackfella Bob. You'll feel me whenever you're walking in the footsteps of Blackfella Bob.
Thank you so much, Neil. It's been great to have a conversation with you. You're playing tonight, 7:15 at the Town Hall. What can people expect? Are you going right back to Warumpi?
Might get to do one more advanced song perhaps, but I'll mostly be doing a few tracks from my latest album, plus hand-picking selected tracks from my body of work,
Beautiful.
A few familiar songs in there.
You done good light in Brew?
Yeah, I'll get a run. It gets a run every time.
Yeah. There's a few people here who love that song.
Yeah.
There's something that Martin Flanagan wrote a long time ago that really caught my eye when I was preparing for this conversation. He said, Neil Murray's life and work will remain relevant while ever Australians ask the question, what in truth does it mean to call Australia home? And I just think that's, well, firstly, I think it's a a tribute to what you've achieved, what you've done, and continue to do. And it's also a challenge to all of us, I think. And I'd like to thank you for what you do and what you've done.
I was hanging out in Sydney and I was going down. I'd done too many parties, my money was running out. Then I met an old man who lived all alone. He had 2 dogs for company, that's all he owned. He was saving his pension for a one-way fare. Said when he had enough, he was getting out of there. I said, really, what are you gonna do? He smiled and said, there's good light in Broome.
Well, what a pleasure and privilege it was to have Neil Murray at CresFest and to have James Freemantle asking him such interesting and thoughtful questions. I really enjoyed that conversation and I hope you did too. There is so much to learn about and from Neil. He sang his songs Broken Land and The Footsteps of Blackfella Bob during the interview, but the recordings weren't great, so I've replaced them with the original band recordings from his more recent albums Blood and Longing and The Telling, and I want to thank him for allowing us to use those recordings. The song in the background now is Neil's great song Good Light in Broome.
Good light in Broome and I'll be there soon. I know exactly what I'm gonna do. Sit on the beach, stare at the moon. Haven't you heard? There's good light in Broome.
I want to acknowledge that the whole of CresFest and the making of this podcast take place on the lands of the Jarrah people who have been making music, telling stories, living and working on this land for many thousands of years, and CresFest is proud to follow in their footsteps.
I did not eat, I was thinking about her and what she did to me.
This podcast has now got close to 5,000 listeners and, to my surprise, it continues to rise. Tell your friends, pass on the good news about this CresFest World, the podcast and the festival itself. Next year's festival takes place between the 10th and the 12th of April 2026. Put those dates in your diary. Artist expressions of interest are now open until the end of July. Soon we're going to be looking for volunteers who get a free weekend ticket for about 9 hours of their time. Go to the website, sign up to receive our newsletter, which gives details about all kinds of things like the artist program, how to get the best ticket deals, and more info on how to volunteer. The website is cresfest.com.au. Repeat after me, cresfest.com.au. The major sponsor of CresFest is Creswick and District Community Bank, to whom we're very grateful.
Good light in Broome, well I'll be there soon. I know exactly what I'm gonna do. Sit on the beach, stare at the moon.
When I was a kid growing up in the UK, I used to listen a lot to the BBC, which is where I first heard folk music on John Peel's show late in the evenings. And on another show, there was a great guy, a commentator called John Ebden. When his show ended each week, he used to sign off by saying, well, if you have been, thanks for listening. I hope you're listening to Neil Murray. I hope you enjoyed this CresFest World podcast number 27. My name's Neil Adam and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye-bye.
Came along on the edge of the country, taking the view. Just like I heard, there's good light in Broome. Good light in Broome, well I'll be there soon. I know exactly what I'm gonna do. Sit on the beach and stare at the moon. Didn't I tell you, there's good light in Broome?